Alright, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Mark of Balance. My name is Mark, and today we're going to be talking about the series premiere of The Acolyte. The first two episodes have premiered on Disney+, and I am excited to talk about this show. This is my most anticipated Star Wars show since it was first announced back 3-4 years ago. I love that we were finally going to see the High Republic in the visual medium, because I am a huge fan of the High Republic books. And I was also excited to see a very Jedi-centric show that followed characters that were brand new in a new era of Star Wars that wasn't connected to the Skywalker saga directly and wasn't going to rely on Easter eggs and member berries from characters we already know. And the really interesting concept that the show was going to bring is that we were going to have a main character on the dark side, and we were going to see it from their perspective, which was very exciting because it was something new and fresh for Star Wars. So now that the show is finally here and we've seen the first two episodes, I can say overall I liked it, but I didn't love it. And I don't want to make excuses for the show. I think the show has a lot more potential than what it's showing so far. I think it's solid. I think the fight choreography is leaps and bounds above a lot of the recent Disney Plus shows that we've been getting from Star Wars, like Obi-Wan and Mandalorian Season 3. I think the production value, you can tell there's physical sets, you can tell that there's less volume usage. I think all of that feels great. It feels alien. We see so much more alien characters in the background and in the foreground, especially some of our main characters, like Jecki being a alien herself. I feel like in Obi-Wan, there was a lot of just humans everywhere, and it didn't feel like a different galaxy. So I'm glad that that's in the forefront here. I'm never a big fan of the weird side of Star Wars, but I know a lot of people are, and that's definitely here. We see a lot of very weird creatures. We see some odd characters introduced in these first two episodes, mostly side characters and small little roles, but it does help contribute to that alien feeling of Star Wars, which I think some of the recent shows maybe have been lacking a bit. So that was cool to see. Where my gripes lie with this show is that the pacing of it is, again, breakneck. This is something that we've seen in pretty much all of the Disney Plus Star Wars shows. There's no time to take a break. There's no time to really get to know some of these side characters. We get some insights into Soul and May and Osha, of course, but other than that, the story is flying by. And some of these pacing issues lead to awkward moments and awkward cuts where dialogue doesn't feel like it really ended at that point, but we're just jumping to the next line. Of course, across these two episodes, I think we jumped to 3 or 4 different planets in a very short amount of time. And I think some of these pacing issues go hand in hand with some awkward dialogue that's sprinkled throughout, some interesting injections of humor that I don't really think matched the Star Wars feel. It more matched more modern Marvel-esque humor that I was like a little bit not excited about to see here, because I was looking for that more mature tone throughout. And there's definitely a mature tone here. It's definitely dealing with a heavy subject matter. And I hope that some of those quippy type dialogue is taken out. It's still early, but I feel these first two episodes needed to do a better job of establishing the High Republic and do more world building to make us feel like we're in a completely different time period than what we're used to in Star Wars. But if you didn't tell me or didn't have the iconography here of the High Republic, I would just figure that we're in the prequel era. It doesn't feel any different, and I think that's something that was really important that they had to nail in the first two episodes. Again, it's early, but these are our first two introductions into the High Republic for many fans, most fans. I mean, most fans have not read the High Republic novels, so I think the show had a bigger obligation to make this time period feel unique, and I just don't think that's been done yet. So overall, besides these main gripes, I do think an interesting story has been started. I am theorizing. I am interested to see where it's going to go. I like some of the more mature tones that have been brought into this show in the first two episodes, and I'm excited to learn more about these characters. I think we've really only scratched the surface with a lot of them. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is up to you. You know, Master Soul, May, and Osha, we've gotten the most out of. Other characters, we've really only gotten about one note from each of them, and I'm hoping that we go deeper. I think, again, the character moments might be cut short because of the breakneck pacing, but I think I'll get into that a bit later. So I am very curious to see what everyone else thinks of this show. I know that it's very divisive as a show, and I don't think that's the show's fault. I think it's very much overblown by keyboard warriors, clickbaiters, and just overall angry people that do not represent the larger Star Wars fandom. So I'm just going to judge the show based on the show, and I'm not even paying attention to the comments or whatever anyone else is really saying that isn't serious. You can tell when people are serious about their criticism and when they're just angry to be angry. So I encourage all of you to just watch the show, form your own opinions, and stay away from just angry people, because there's no reason to be angry over Star Wars. It's fiction. I get it. I get heated. I definitely get revved up when Star Wars does not live up to something, but it's never because of what the divisiveness is about right now that people are trying to put on the Acolyte. It's never about that. So I'm just going to get past this little disclaimer I had to do in the beginning to address it, but let's just jump into the show. So we start the show with a nice ode to Star Wars, the blue lettering. We have a little bit of background, a little opening crawl. And here's my first issue with the show. Sorry, we got to start on a negative note, but as a huge High Republic book fan, I have to call this out because it is a bit ridiculous, because the opening crawl essentially says that there have been hundreds of years of peace and without war in the Republic. And I know this show is set after the events of the High Republic novels, but if you were to tell me that the High Republic novels don't depict an all-out war in the galaxy between the Jedi and the Nihil, the space pirate marauders, I would call you crazy. And some canon experts might be like, oh, well, semantically, that wasn't actually a declared war. It was a war. And I know this is happening within 100 years. So I think this opening crawl kind of just says, oh, the books are canon, but not really. Which is frustrating, because the only reason this show exists in the High Republic era is because of the books. So now you're spitting in the face of the books that have influenced and created this era for you to play around in. That was not a great start to see. Again, maybe my timeline's a little iffy, but I don't think it is. Vernestra is a main character in the High Republic novels. We see her here. We know she's older than Master Soul, but she's not hundreds of years old. And so I just don't like that they're kind of saying, well, that war in quotation, wasn't really a war in the High Republic novels. So I don't know, maybe the way the High Republic novels wrap up, because we are in the final phase right now, maybe the way they wrap up does explain why the Jedi or the Republic wouldn't consider it a war. But again, I think that's a dumb way to explain it, and I think this is just a mistake. So got off on the wrong foot here, but we do start with following May, this Acolyte, this Sith dark side Acolyte, might not be a Sith yet. And we see that there are pockets of dark side users training in the darkness, and May and her master are stepping out, and she is on this mission to get revenge on 4 Jedi Masters that did her wrong in the past. We don't know what the traumatic event is. We don't know the seed that created this revenge tale, but we know it has to do with May, the dark side user, and Osha, the twin sister of May that we get introduced to and was a Padawan once. So we have this two-sided story of 2 sisters, identical twins. One went down the dark path, one went down the light path. One is doing it for revenge, and the other is just living her life. She had left the Jedi Order, which raises a lot of interesting questions on why she would do that. And this inciting traumatic incident, I'll talk about a bit more when I'm deeper into the episode and my theories for it, but it's really interesting. It definitely gives Last Jedi vibes, and I don't think Last Jedi stuck the landing with the multiple perspective traumatic experience. I'm hoping that the Acolyte does its own thing and doesn't follow down that path. I am a Last Jedi defender, but I will say always that that was a messy part of the film, as is a lot of the plot in that film. But I do think the themes are very, very well done in The Last Jedi. Regardless, May takes on Master Undara, who is in this backwater cantina, which I think contributes to maybe the repentance that a lot of these Jedi Masters who were involved in this incident may feel. We see she is in this backwater town. We see one of the other masters, Master Torben, is meditating for 10 years, trying to find inner peace after what happened. And we see the Wookiee Jedi has sequestered himself on a remote planet and is obviously not an acting member of the Jedi Order. And Master Soul, while he's at the Jedi Temple, he's teaching kids, he does have this sadness to him that he has not gotten over. So I like that this incident and these Jedi that she's hunting are showing that something terrible did happen without overtly saying it. But May takes out Master Undara. She makes her pick between defending herself and defending a bartender. I think this was a bit of an awkward exchange here. It felt like Undara was killed for the sake of being killed, and I don't think she was really outsmarted here. I get they're trying to do the whole Jedi are so selfless to a fault, and she didn't protect herself, but I wish this scene was just done in a more interesting way. So that's our introduction to the Acolyte. We see blood coming out of Master Undara. Again, something new for Star Wars in live action. We don't typically see blood, so this was very interesting choice aesthetically and tonally. So that was great to see because the poster did have the bloody lightsaber. So glad they stuck that in the actual show. And this is really our jumping off point. I'm not going to go through every single scene, but the choreography was cool here. You know, action isn't my draw to Star Wars. The philosophical aspects of Star Wars, the characters are much more interesting to me. But I am glad that the action at least looks better than what we've been getting recently with Obi-Wan, Mandalorian Season 3, and even some of the fight scenes in the Ahsoka series. And that action carries out well throughout. Master Soul and May go head-to-head in the second episode, and I think that one was maybe even better than this one. So action so far is really good. I'm really excited to see some lightsaber combat in the future. If this is the hand-to-hand combat we're seeing, I have very, very high hopes for the lightsaber combat. We then get introduced to Osha, who is instantly likable. I really think she fits right into Star Wars and a protagonist in the Star Wars galaxy. I really think Amandla does a great job of bringing that likableness to the front from the first scene, especially when you have to juxtapose that to the very dark May that we saw in the previous scene. I think it's really great, and I really want to see what they do with these two characters throughout this series. Aside from May and Osha, the main characters that round out our cast are Master Soul, Jeki, and Yord. Master Soul being this very wise, comforting Jedi Master who immediately gives off that vibe. Lee Jung-jae does a great job of embodying a Jedi Master. And we see that he does have his ghost. We have this event that happened to him in his past that he hasn't fully gotten over. We see he's emotional the moment he hears that Osha might be the murderer of Master Indira. We see him looking at pictures of her. We see him saying one thing but maybe meaning something completely different, and I think that's really down to the subtext of some of the writing and Lee Jung-jae's performance here. He says, you have to reflect on the past because if you don't, you're doomed to repeat it. But we very much see that he is not at peace with his past and he's still working through it. I think Jeki is immediately likable. She's very straightforward, to the point, and logical, and also very much an admirer of Master Soul. We see that she looks up to him a lot, and I think her humor and her quips are actually on point here, and I love when she devised the plan in the second episode. It was so perfect. I think Yord is the weakest of the main cast. I think he's supposed to be unlikable. He's supposed to be the dogmatic Jedi who follows the rule book. He doesn't deviate from that. He needs to be the most stand-up Jedi, and that's more leaning into the Jedi becoming who they are in the prequels, where they don't as much follow the Force, but they more feel like an enforcement arm of the Republic. And though they outwardly appear spiritual, they really are more militant, and I think that's really what Yord's embodying, and I think he has the biggest amount of opportunity to grow as a character and become more likable, but as of right now, I'm very lukewarm and don't love him as a character, hoping that he's given a bit more to work with throughout the rest of the series. Some other notable side characters we meet. Vernestra, as I said, is a character that was in the High Republic novels. She was really a side main character, if that makes sense. Like all of the spin-off novels, she was usually in a leading role, but she was never in a leading role of a mainline novel. Though she does seem to be becoming a main character in the final phase that we're in right now. Defy the Storm just came out, and she looks to be a major player in the upcoming novel. So we might see more of her as a main character in the High Republic books, and that might lead into the way she is now in the Acolyte. Because personally, I didn't love her portrayal here. She seemed very much to be much less compassionate than she is in the book. She seems very stoic, standoffish, not very emotional, which, something might happen in the final phase of the High Republic novels to make her that way. But right now, I didn't love her portrayal. We don't know what happened. Maybe she was involved in the traumatic event. But again, this is a High Republic character from the books that a lot of people were excited to see. And personally, she didn't hit the mark for me. And I didn't even read a lot of her books. So I'm sure people that did read her books might not be as happy with her as me. The final character I'll touch on is the shady character that works with May. He gives her the poison. He comes off as the goof drunk, but he is much more sinister than that. We see he's very proficient at obviously making poison. He knows how to read his enemies. He knew how to kill Master Torben almost immediately. He's very aware of May's past because he was able to draw on that to get to kill Master Torben. And he's also very much aware of the dark side master that is the masked character we've seen in the trailers and promotional materials. He's also very perceptive. He immediately notices when Osha is disguised as May. And I think he's being led on as kind of a drunk, as we said, but I think he's going to play a much, much bigger role and maybe be the puppet master or something along those lines. I think that would be a really great twist, and I think every mystery obviously needs a huge twist. So I want to dive into the pacing issues a bit because, we do go in 2 episodes to about 4 different planets. Master Soul goes from, no, I saw May die with my own eyes, she's dead, to the next scene, him saying, oh, Osha, I believe you, she's alive. Then the Jedi Council calls him and says, oh, yeah, May's definitely alive because you have Osha and someone just committed a crime on another planet. So, yeah, we're cleared. That all happens in, 3 or 4 scenes, if I'm remembering correctly. And so, the pacing just feels lightning fast. There are some nice character moments between Master Soul and Osha. Jecki and Osha have a little bit of time together. So I'm not saying the show is devoid of character moments, but in the first 2 episodes, you really should be establishing these characters a bit more, and they're just flying through this story right now. We already have 2 of the 4 Jedi dead that are on May's hit list. I very much think that the Wookiee Jedi next week will also bite the dust, and then Master Soul will be the last one left. And so that's why my main prediction is that these first 4 episodes will kind of be the jumping off point. We see the revenge plot wrap up where May may kill all of the Jedi Masters she's going after, and then we see the repercussions of that. How does Osha move forward with that? How does her master react to that? We know that her master has these rules. You can't kill anyone with a weapon, even though she's already killed 2 of the Jedi Masters with weapons. He's trying to kill the idea or the dream of the Jedi, which I think is a really cool line that he has in this. So I really think Master Soul might not make it out of the first 4 episodes. I know it's a bold prediction, but it just feels like we're already halfway through the hit list, and the mystery has already unraveled with the twin sisters, but now we're going to dive into, who is the dark side user that is training May? How was May picked up? I think there's a lot of stuff to follow in the last 4 episodes that I don't think has been shown at all in any of the trailers. I feel like the trailers have really focused on the first 3 or 4 episodes. So that's really exciting. I'm very curious to see what this traumatic incident is between May and Osha, because we see in these episodes that there's conflicting stories. We see Osha and Master Soul say, yeah, we saw May die with our own eyes, and then May, when she sees Osha, says, oh, I thought you died. I saw you die. So now we have these conflicting perspectives and conflicting stories. We have Osha believing that May set a fire to destroy the village and kill her family. We don't fully know May's side of the story, but we can imagine that since she does have some good left in her, we see she doesn't kill the bartender when his kid is nearby. We can speculate that May likely started the fire for a justified reason, whether it was to try and protect her family and it backfired, or she was trying to stop the Jedi from doing something wrong, or this dark side user maybe tricked her into starting the fire. We need to see her side of the story, but I do think it's very interesting. I think, Leslie Headland has talked about seeing the perspective of the dark side users or why they do what they do. I think that would make the most sense if May did this for maybe the right reason and then gets ostracized because it didn't turn out the way she did. Are Master Soul and the other Jedi lying about the incident? What exactly happened? What was so traumatic that Master Torben literally meditated for 10 years to try and find peace, and still in the end he killed himself at the first opportunity to, when May hands him the poison vial? I mean, that's pretty wild. We just saw a Jedi Master kill himself. Again, the pacing, it happened so fast that it didn't hit as hard as I think it should have, but reflecting on it, it's like, wow, a Jedi Master killed himself. That's really crazy. So it's really going to come down to this main incident. I don't think the reveal of what happened will happen in episode 7. I think it'll very much happen over the next couple episodes, and we'll work through it that way. But it does have me theorizing. It does have me interested. So that's a pretty good start. The last two things I want to talk about from these first 2 episodes are the mother character that we haven't seen in the show yet, but we've seen in the promotional materials and the trailers. We see the white spiral symbol on Osha's head when she reveals it. We know that it's related to that mother figure. And the other thing I want to talk about is Master Soul and Master Vernestra and the Jedi slipping into that more dogmatic way that we see in the prequels, where they're more of an enforcement arm of the Republic and less of a religious order following the will of the Force. In the first scene with Vernestra and Master Soul, they say, oh, well, if they find out that a former Jedi killed another Jedi, then our political enemies will come after us. That was a very interesting line because it definitely indicates a change in mindset in the Jedi Order. And then we see at the end of episode 2, Vernestra's like, oh, we need to have a meeting, Master Soul. And Master Soul's like, no, we know exactly where she's going. Why do we have to meet to talk about it? And Vernestra's like, no, that's not how we do things. We need to meet. Again, something that the Jedi Council from the prequel era would do. Instead of going to action and saving people, they have to talk about it. They have to talk about it before they can do anything. So I think that's very interesting. I think that very much falls in line with what Leslie Headland wants to explore between the High Republic and how the Jedi become the way they are in the prequels. So we'll see where that goes. And then some of the theorizing I just want to do as a High Republic book reader is the mother figure that we've seen in the trailers. We see that she's referred to as a mother. She's very much giving that religious cult-esque vibe from what we've seen. And we see the symbol on May's head. So we know that there's a connection potentially between the dark side user and the mother. Whether this mother is in the same lineage as the Path of the Open Hand from the High Republic novels, where there was a mother figure that started that Force cult that essentially wanted to rid the galaxy of Force users because they believed that the Force should not be tampered with by mortals or by any creatures, and anyone using the Force is taking advantage of the natural Force. So they want to get rid of all the Force users. I just find it interesting that she goes by Mother, and the High Republic also deals with a very prominent character that has Mother in the title. So maybe she's on an offshoot of the original Path of the Open Hand outside of the Nihil. Again, the Nihil are another faction in the High Republic novels. I'm sorry for just bringing in so much lore from the novels, but I love it. And if you're a fan of the High Republic books, I want to give you that content. So I'd be very interested to see how much they draw from the books if they do go down that route. I am very skeptical of that because, like I said, the opening crawl pretty much spit in the face of the books by, implying that there wasn't a war when there definitely was one. And now to take that deep cut of drawing from the mother seems like a stretch, but I'll throw it out there because the symbol looks like the storm that the Nihil use. We'll see. I would love it, but I don't know if they'll do it. I hope the character is interesting. That's the main point there. But yeah, that's it. That's all I've got for the first 2 episodes of The Acolyte. Again, I liked the show. I didn't love it. I think it didn't reach its full potential. I think that's not just coming from me having high expectations. I think pacing was a problem in some of these episodes. I think dialogue was hit or miss, sometimes really good, sometimes really really indicative of other Disney Plus shows. Choreography, production design were great. I think those were definitely a step up from other shows. When I'm saying all this, Andor is not one of those shows. Andor is on another stratosphere here. And from a world building aspect, I don't think this did the High Republic justice. It didn't feel like a different era of Star Wars, and I think it very much needed to do that in the first 2 episodes. And I think even if they establish it in the next coming episodes, I think since this was the introduction of the High Republic, it needed to do a good job immediately for new fans. So world building, definitely not up to par here. And while the world building wasn't as strong as I think it could have been, I think the aliens and the prominence of aliens in these shots and in some of the leading roles is great. It makes Star Wars feel alien again. And I'm happy for people in the Star Wars fandom that like that weird side of Star Wars. I feel like that's very much here and present. So if that's your type of Star Wars, the Acolyte is bringing the good stuff for you guys. So that's all I got. I definitely probably missed some things in the first 2 episodes, but I definitely want to hear what you guys think. I'll be doing these weekly reviews. Excited to get back to it with you guys, and I'm excited to just hear everyone's thoughts on the series, because I do know that it's very divisive right now for some bad reasons, for some more honest criticisms, and I just want to hear all healthy conversations about this series and why you do or don't like it. So please leave a review on whatever streaming platform you're listening to this on. Tell all your friends, family, anyone that listens to Star Wars about the podcast. I'm sure I've covered a topic that they would be interested in if they like Star Wars. Appreciate that up front. Thank you very much, of course, for listening. And if you want to follow me on Instagram for all updates on new Star Wars stuff or when I'm dropping episodes, you can follow me at @star_wars_mark of balance on Instagram, if I didn't already say, on Instagram. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy, and may the Force be with you. Peace.